Today, we're comparing two vehicles I thought couldn't be compared at all due to their completely different features and characteristics. But if you look at the technical specifications, you'll see that the BMW iX2 is almost exactly the same size as the Audi Q4 e-tron Sportback. We are going to compare them in further detail. And with that, hey and welcome to this new video here at Car Jonas, and welcome to the comparison of the Audi Q4 e-tron Sportback. e-tron in the coupe SUV variant, also the Sportback version, against the coupe SUV from BMW X1, which is now called iX2, because it is no longer a completely independent vehicle as the X2 used to be. No, it is now simply the coupe variant of the EX1. And while it is still somewhat shorter than the comparable Audi Q4 e-tron, the EX2 is almost identical in length to the Q4. This model here has just received a significant product update, so we can show you the CU 2024 version with updated infotainment and new drivetrains. And the iX2 is brand new on the market. So is it actually worth comparing these two vehicles with each other? And of course, it's also somewhat similar to a regular Q4 versus iX1. So if that interests you as well, then you're definitely in the right place with this video. And if you like the video, feel free to subscribe for free below the video. Costs you absolutely nothing at all, but it really helps me a lot with the work and preparation of these videos. Tests here, we start with the price because there are comparable engines. The iX2 starts with the eDrive 20 variant, a purely front-wheel drive with 150 kW or 204 HP from 49,900 euros. The Audi starts with the 45 version. It then comes equipped with the new corporate rear motor. It has 210 kW, significantly more than the iX2, but it also costs more, starting at just under 56,000 euros. With that, you also get always 77 kWh battery capacity. The iX2 starts at around 65 kWh, which means it actually has 10 kWh more and provides quite a significant boost in overall performance. The old Q4 Sportback variants, however, had the identical 150 kW motor, so not the same one, but the one with the same power. Here we have the all-wheel drive version in the BMW and the pure rear-wheel drive in the Audi, as mentioned earlier. The all-wheel drive at BMW is called xDrive 30, comes with 230 kW and starts at 57,000 euros. Of course, there are also a few from Audi, which is then called the Audi Q4 Sportback 45 e-tron Quattro, and it has 210 kW, just like the pure rear-wheel drive. But there's also the larger 55 Quattro, and that has 250 kW, which kind of sits in the middle. The smaller all-wheel drive at Audi costs just as much, so also 750,000 euros. I think it's not surprising that it's difficult to compare the vehicles one-to-one purely based on price. That's why feel free to check out both configurators. Currently, all variants are available with different ranges and various equipment options. And quite often, it's enough if you opt for different rims and the range already decreases. And then, with larger rims, it can already be calculated to a driving range similar to this one standing here with the standard rims. With the Audi, you'll notice that it comes with 18-inch steel wheels. And now let's take a comprehensive look at both vehicles from exterior roundup. With Jonas, we really dive deeply into both technical and visual details. To begin with, BMW places the vehicle on a mixed platform, meaning the vehicle is also available as a combustion engine and as a plug-in hybrid. The Audi Q4 is only available as an electric variant because it is built on Volkswagen's MEB platform. The Audi is 1.87 meters wide, while the BMW is 1.85 meters, making them very close in width and hard to distinguish based on this metric alone. Both vehicles come with intelligent front headlights. The Audi has the advantage here that it can customize the daytime running light signature in 4 different variants. The BMW also comes with an illuminated grille. Personally, I find that very pretty, as it makes the vehicle appear a bit wider and especially more high-end, giving it a much more distinguished and premium look. Otherwise, you have similar functions. That means the vehicles mask oncoming traffic, although the Audi does it much more precisely. On the side, you can see the Audi has a length of 4.56 meters and the BMW is 4.55 meters. So you can really tell the dimensions are very, very similar, although the Audi has noticeably shorter overhangs, which you can clearly see here in the side profile. And this also ensures the Audi has a 2.76 meter wheelbase, which is 7 centimeters longer. We'll take a look at that later in the interior. The rear sections of both vehicles resemble each other in their structure and shape. Sure, they are SUV coupes, so they have a sloping rear end and a small roof spoiler that aids aerodynamics and stability, especially when driving at higher speeds or on winding roads. Audi comes with continuous rear light strips, but this feature is only available in the higher trim levels. Otherwise, there are just 2 LED elements on the sides, which is a noticeable difference. The iX2 comes with full LED taillights, and they are designed in an arrow shape. That's something now new at BMW, making the rear end overall a bit cleaner. On the Audi, the rear window is divided by the spoiler. It runs straight across and splits the whole thing in half. At BMW, the small spoiler lip is located at the bottom of the rear window, and hidden within it is the rear view camera. Personally, I prefer the Audi from the back, but the BMW from the front. Once we've reached the back, we'll naturally talk about the trunk, because with Audi, you open it in a relatively classic way. With BMW, fold away the logo to reveal an almost identical trunk size to Audi's, providing similar cargo space for your belongings.
The BMW comes with 425 litres, the Audi with 435. That's almost identical as we mentioned earlier in the video.
And it's really got it in. I've got my little measuring tool here again, and we'll see how much space it actually is. Here in the BMW, the widest or deepest point is 91 centimeter. Now looking at the Audi at the same spot, here we have it a slightly larger 92 centimeter. That provides a bit more space, so 1 more centimeter. And in width at the narrowest point, which is always the important part for you, I have exactly 1 meter here. And in the BMW, if I make an effort to sit back here just like this, we have 1.02 meters, so that's 2 centimeters in favor of the BMW. I'll hang out the parcel shelf here in order to measure with you exactly how much space there is from the bottom to the very top. But now here at the normal height in the BMW, there's no alternative. There's only a relatively reasonable storage compartment below. You can easily fit a mobile charging solution in there like the Energy Kick. We probably tried it out. He's got plenty of space here, but you only get 1 level. So over here you have up to the parcel shelf at the usual spot, not at the bend in the middle, precisely 45 centimeters in total length. We'll do the same procedure here for the Audi. Just disengage it once, knee and then also measure approximately 41 centimeters from the bottom right here. But you have to keep in mind, with the Audi, you can push this entire section down 1 level. And I'll just show you that. So now you just need to pull out the charging cable. And then in the Audi, you have significantly more, namely 52 centimeters. So particularly in height, you benefit in the Audi from being able to lower the floor. If I hang this back in here to show it better, you do have the disadvantage in the Audi that there isn't much space underneath anymore. Because when I open this second double floor next to the subwoofer, there's hardly any substantial space left. You can barely fit the regular charging cable in there with some effort. It shows that both trunks are almost identical in terms of volume. In addition, there's the towing capacity, and the iX2 offers between 750 and 1200 kilos. With the Audi, it starts at 1200 and goes up to 1400 kilos. So if you tow more often, you'll be better off with the Audi. But it should also be noted, and this is an important point, especially when it comes to consumption later, the Audi weighs more in every equipment variant. Adjusting for equipment, so with similar additional features, about 200 kilograms more. That will, of course, be quite evenly distributed over the battery, because 10 kilowatt hours does weigh a bit, not quite 200 kilo, but a portion of that will go there. And if you're wondering, unfortunately, neither vehicle has a frunk, which I find disappointing. BMW doesn't have it in any model. Audi only offers it in higher priced ones, like optionally in the Q6. That's standard in the Q8 and also in the e-tron GT. That's it for the trunk. Feel free to write in the comments what you think about it, because although these are the so-called coupe versions of the SUVs, they have more space compared to, let's say, the EX1 or even the regular Q4. With the iX1, it's not surprising since this one is significantly longer. With the regular Q4, it's always surprising, but because this roofline is raised higher and the parcel shelf ends a bit further up, it simply benefits from it. Did you learn something new? Now let's take a look at the interior. We're starting with the Audi Q4, and here you can really notice that the car is built on a dedicated electric platform. Even though the Audi seems a bit more conservative compared to its MEB platform siblings and the overall layout, more reminiscent of classic combustion Audi models. So you can see in many parts that, yes, there were simply different construction spaces and you could position yourself differently. I personally don't like the feel of the materials in the car in some places. There is quite a bit of piano black and hard plastic used, especially in the lower part of the center console and in the doors. That gets pretty tough pretty quickly. In the front area, there's an inductive charging pad, plenty of storage options, and a large driver info display paired with a separate climate control unit and a big multimedia screen. We'll look at that later. The interior appears clean and driver-focused, with a smart design that enhances the driving experience. Here in the vehicle, we have the optional sport seats installed, costing €600 and featuring this pattern. But there are also other variants. One of the S-Line models is even sportier. On the passenger seat, there's also ISOFIX, so in terms of storage options, you've got quite a good setup here. In the BMW, things are a bit more classic, and even though the Audi was already classic, you can tell in some places that the BMW is still based on the combustion engine platform. For example, you can clearly see in the lower area that some construction construction elements were simply added in, which makes it not quite as open and airy, but I definitely think the interior design turned out really well overall, especially since BMW now applies its design consistently across all vehicles. The materials in the BMW feel of much higher quality, featuring more soft touch elements and above all more part plastic elements that feel significantly better. The center console floats. Unfortunately, it doesn't offer many storage options, except for a huge compartment underneath and the inductive charging pad. For that, there's a driver information display. It's significantly smaller than the main display, so it somewhat fades into the background with this two-panel design. At times that seems somewhat odd because they aren't the same size, which can draw attention. The seats are very comfortable and typically sporty for BMW, nicely shaped, and there's ISOFIX on the passenger seat as well. I always find it very practical, especially with these vehicles here, when you say, yeah, it's also there for just the two of you to go somewhere. But now let's move on to the software and start with the Audi. In the new model year generation, it has actually received an update and some new hardware installed. This one is significantly more powerful and has new features. For example, the battery can now... Preconditioning means that on the way to the charging station, the battery is either heated or cooled, ensuring that you get the perfect charging time once you arrive at the station. And the vehicle also plans out a route for you. Here, we encountered one or two small issues, sometimes with planning exceeding 80%, but you can practically set the limit down here. Otherwise, unfortunately, there are no smart services in the Audi, except for a weather function, for example. The apps that you know from the Q8, for example, are not featured here. That's simply due to this MEB platform system. You can't really expect too much here, but I still find it a bit disappointing nonetheless. There's a lot more to see here. In the BMW, software version 9 features a brand new, more intuitive overlay that improves usability. So for example, you have the widgets on the left and the map on the right. Everything works very smoothly and reliably. Since there's no separate climate control panel, you manage everything through the display and the climate functionality that's always pinned on the bottom left. And there's always the shortcut. Straight to Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. By the way, it's wireless with AUDI 2. Then of course, the obligatory charging range test follows here as well. Finally, BMW has set it up so that you can now plan your route at a charging station, even while you're actively charging your vehicle. That also makes the vehicle quite reasonable with all the charging stops and useful information. Additionally, you also receive smart images and useful information about the charging provider and the location in general. BMW really stepped up their game here. You can see the improvements, and just like with Audi, it's clear that it keeps growing and continuously getting better and better. And naturally here as well, you can then set the respective percentage values that are necessary. BMW has made the system somewhat more open. It's based on Android, meaning you have quite a few more apps available here. You can, for example, download Spotify or various games. What I noticed missing though is a YouTube app. These are available in the larger models, but apparently not here in the iX2. So now let's move on to the second row of seats and start again with the Audi, and I'll show you how much space you actually have. The aforementioned longer wheelbase definitely pays off, especially in the interior space of the Audi. You can see that the distance from the rear seat to the front is significantly larger, and you can actually notice that quite clearly when you are driving the car. The seats are well contoured, but unfortunately the material quality isn't as high, because in the back, everything except for the armrest is hard plastic. In the head area, there's plenty of room, and optionally, you can get a 3-zone climate control and USB ports. Overall, the interior really exhibits a good character until you touch it in detail for the very first time. ISOFIX is available on the outer rear seats with a reasonable amount of space. In the BMW, it's noticeably tighter. You can see it here at my knees, but also around the head area. The vehicle just isn't as spacious in the back because of this mixed platform. Although the backrest in the vehicle can be adjusted for a bit more space in the back seat, it still feels somewhat constrained. Trunk space, so you have to see what appeals to you more. The material quality in the BMW is the same in the back as it is in the front, and that needs to be emphasized because it's really good. The head area is smaller and there is no 3-zone climate control, but there are USB-C ports and ISOFIX, and the Maxi-Cosi seats also fit well here, even if it's a bit of a squeeze. To get that in, simply because there's not much space in the front, and if you like that, both vehicles offer an optional glass panoramic roof. But before we get to the driving experience, let's quickly touch on one more topic: connectivity. We've shown it in detail during everyday tests, with the Q4's app integration and back then with the iX1. With the iX2, we skipped that because the app hasn't changed, but there are significant differences between the two vehicles. And because in e-mobility, many people always expect that the smartphone will pretty much seamlessly work with the car, I want to briefly touch on that. At Audi, the settings are quite basic. You can monitor the vehicle, for example, precondition the interior, and you can see the current state of charge. Plus, you can see how many kW you're currently charging with. With BMW, it's much more extensive and comprehensive because you can even use your phone as a digital key. That works either through Google or Apple Wallet, so you don't even need a key at all to be able to drive the car anywhere you want whenever. I find it very, very practical. Additionally, you can open and close the car and of course handle the basics like climate control. It's a point that can speak in favor of the BMW for some of you. And with that, we come to the driving impression and start here with the iX2 and an essential feature.
Because if I switch to the B mode, the hair recuperation, the vehicle can recuperate until it comes to a complete stop.
This is more commonly referred to as one-pedal driving, and it means you can effectively drive here using a single pedal for all operations. It means I hardly ever need the brake in everyday life, only in tricky situations. Otherwise, I can control everything with the gas pedal, which is very pleasant, especially in the city, as it offers a smoother driving experience. Or in stop-and-go traffic, you never really have to use the actual brake. Plus, the entire process is a bit more sustainable since you constantly slow down using energy recovery rather than traditional braking mechanisms. That's available here in Q4. Unfortunately, not here. You only have the B mode, which allows for a bit more recuperation. Or alternatively, you can take them out and then use the paddles on the right and left to adjust the regeneration either higher or lower, in 3 different stages. It's funny though, when you get out of the car and into the EX2 and start looking for the paddle shifters, you always end up pressing the boost button automatically. And if I then pull the boost button here, I will have full power for 10 full seconds. The iconic sounds also give me a bit of a sense of what's happening with the vehicle, like stepping on the pedal and the sounds go up. But you can also turn it off and then you have the electric silence, and through the My modes there are also different driving functions. That means I can choose between personal, sport, efficient and expressive modes, and it's always linked to the adaptive suspension system because in the all-wheel drive variant it's standard equipment, ensuring the best possible driving experience, as mentioned earlier. Now it's really a bit, well, differently tuned whether you want to be sportier or a bit more comfortable on the go. You can definitely feel it while driving the car. It's certainly not an air suspension that can be adjusted in extreme detail, but it ensures that you can call up and experience different driving profiles in a variety of situations. Previously, it was known as the driving experience switch at BMW, and that concept is definitely still somewhat behind it. The chassis itself is also typically BMW, rather firm and sportily tuned. Personally, I like that. I mean, there are always different tastes, and because of the adaptive chassis, which is also the M Sport chassis, it's naturally a bit tighter. That's really fun. You can really enjoy driving it. Thanks to the nearly 550 Newton meters, the acceleration here in the Q4 is really decent. The sound ambiance is always present in the dynamic setting, and as soon as you switch to comfort, it's completely gone. I personally don't really need it, but the sound in here is okay. The comfort is really good. Unfortunately, there's the adaptive chassis control, or DCC, here in the vehicle is always only optional, whether you go for the all-wheel drive or just the rear-wheel drive. You always have to pay a price if you want to have the DCC, but that's really reasonable. You can adjust it to many levels according to your preferences, and that's where you can really start to feel the difference between sporty and comfortable settings. And in the end, that's basically the functionality you get with such a DCC system. It would, of course, be really nice if it came with the higher variants, just like you see in BMW's offerings. On the country road, the vehicle drives well and it's really zippy. You have a good suit and it's kind of that electric kick that you like to have. Additionally, the rear-wheel drive variant naturally makes rear-wheel driving fun, and the all-wheel drive, yes, it's fine. But actually, in terms of fuel consumption and also the overall agility and driving feel, the rear-wheel drive is definitely the more attractive option for most enthusiasts. Feel free to share what you think about it. We've both driven it and put it to the test here. That's why I don't really want to delve too much into either of the 2 engine options in this comparison, simply because it's hard to compare all-wheel drive with rear-wheel drive. On the highway, you then realize it may sound silly at first, but it's true, the slightly shorter wheelbase. The car feels less stable at higher speeds. The lock holds at 180 km/h, but in curves, you notice its shorter wheelbase impacting stability, especially on winding roads where precise control is necessary for a smooth drive. The sportier chassis is more stable at high speeds, and this vehicle offers all the advanced driver assistance systems one could wish for, enhancing both safety and convenience. Though for an extra charge, it is available. This means an active lane keeping assist and adaptive cruise control. The vehicle handles that pretty well overall, and you also have the additional option here to perform an assisted lane change whenever necessary. It means the vehicle keeps you centered in the lane, increasing safety and easing driver fatigue on longer journeys. Whether you truly need that is always up for debate and can be questioned. The noise level is noticeably higher due to the relatively steep windshield and the quite steep front, but it still comfortably remains within reasonable limits. And it's really quite pleasant to be traveling on the highway in this vehicle. And so in the Q4, you also have all the optional assistance systems that you wish for and are currently familiar with. The adaptive cruise control with various distances, and accordingly also the active lane keeping assistant, a lane change assistant that then helps you when changing lanes. And that's how you can drive it relaxed. The suspension and noise insulation are under control, ensuring a quiet and comfortable experience. It also tops out at 180 km/h in this model. The BMW optionally comes with a head-up display. This provides essential details like speed, navigation info, directions, and so on. Is limited to a relatively small size but super sharp and above all bright. This means you can always read it well and there's no glare in this area no matter where the sun comes from. You've really got a very good field of view and all the essential information directly in the direction of travel. A major difference is the head-up display, as it's augmented here in the Audi. That means you get lines and information placed directly into the surface. I personally find it always very attractive. But now let's move on to the consumption. It's obviously difficult to compare the significantly more powerful all-wheel drive with the rear-wheel drive purely in terms of consumption, but I wasn't too surprised, because on a one-to-one drive, the Audi only had about 5% better fuel consumption, and that's even though it is rear-wheel drive. In everyday use, the Audi was about 5 to 10% worse for us compared to the Quattro version, meaning both vehicles consume nearly the same amount in everyday situations. Of course, the Audi goes further simply because of the larger battery. Still, I always find it impressive what efficiency BMW puts into their vehicles, even though they are only mixed platforms, and it must also be highlighted that Audi has made significant progress with their new drives on the MEB platform because their vehicles weren't very economical in the past, and to achieve such a consumption with a good mixed driving style here, I found that really good. In everyday use, you can typically drive both models at around 15 kilowatt hours in the suburban area, and that's really quite fine. And then the only thing left is the charging part, which is quite interesting. We just activated both vehicles here with the Maingau Energy app. Super practical, feel free to check it out below the video. This is a provider where you don't pay any basic fee, but you have an AC and a DC price. That implies there's a distinction, so you can charge more here, but then it's cheaper in the city, offering greater flexibility. It's definitely worth checking out either a charging card or the app for yourself. In the AC area, vehicles differ significantly. The iX2 is a bit like a car, can optionally charge with up to 22 kilolov. This means that the battery is fully charged from 0 to 100% in just 3 hours. Unfortunately, that's not available with Audi. It can charge with 11 kilowatt-hours, and that'll take you around 7 to 8 hours. But it's fine. We talked earlier about the vehicles having different battery sizes, which definitely affects their charging times considerably. So the Audi has 77 kilowatt-hours and the BMW 64.8. And when you see they take the same time at the charging station, 28 minutes for the Audi and 29 for the iX2, that's quite remarkable. Because the Audi charges with a peak power of 175 kilowatts. During this period, it replenishes approximately 53.8 kilowatt of energy. And the iX2, it also charges from 10 to 80 in these 29 minutes, but only with a peak of 130 kilowatt-hours, and during this time it adds around 45.5 kilowatt-hours of energy to the battery. You can see there's a noticeable difference. This shows the Audi takes faster to charge, even though both ultimately take the same amount of time to fully charge. Standing at the charging station, what do you think about it? Feel free to write it in the comments. You always see this 10 to 80 value, but I think it's really important to also see how much energy is actually being recharged in that specific period of time. Otherwise, I hope this comparison, like all the other comparisons on this channel, has been helpful to you. And if that's the case, feel free to check out the detailed daily test of the Q4 right up here. And down here we have the iX1 because the iX2 is still yet to come.